Hey there, guys. This is Slamzeron, aka YouTube's Toske. If you've been keeping up with the Wii and JRPGs and video games and the world, then you've probably heard about the Operation Rainfall project that people were doing and how it brought some three Wii games that people really wanted overseas, at least in North America. I think for Europe, they just kind of got them, just because reasons. But thanks to Operation Rainfall, we got these games in North America, probably in English too. I'm not entirely familiar with the project and like its reasoning and whatnot, so sorry if I'm making a few mistakes. But I figured I'd talk about the three games since I've played them. Haven't finished them all, but I've played them enough to where I feel like I can give them a bit of a short sort of overall thingy. My mind's kind of destroyed because I just got finished voice acting and auditioning for stuff. Yeah, I'm back in business. Not really. As you can tell, the first game I'm going to talk about is Xenoblade Chronicles. It was the first one to be released, and to be honest, it's my least favorite. The graphics are fine. I don't really criticize the graphics, and the story seemed interesting. It kind of actually drew me in a little bit due to the fact that one girl actually dies in the beginning. Spoilers. But the battle system is what kind of kills it for me because, British voice acting I could handle. It's still kind of weird to me because I feel like video games, anime, or Japanese, video games should be taken the same way as anime where, unless stated otherwise, they're supposed to sound unethnical or they're not supposed to sound like they're of, a specific ethnicity or anything like that. And I feel like Japan tries to do that. Because if you hear them, they try to kind of take away the accents a little bit. You can really only hear it when they're speaking English, but even still, they're in Japan. They're not trying to completely get rid of their accents. They're just trying to sound unethical or ethnic. That's the word. Anyway, the battle system is a lot like an MMO, and where it's like the auto attack thing. So it's kind of like White Knight Chronicles, but White Knight Chronicles isn't even really that fun to begin with. I mean, I like that game, but anyway. So essentially, this game was okay, but its gameplay kind of killed it for me. And the British voice acting, I feel like, is kind of weird here. It just sounds like they just got British voice actors to come in and dub. I feel like this one is definitely the worst out of all three of them. Or my least favorite. Probably even the worst as well. Yeah, it's my least favorite, and in my opinion, it's the worst. So, if you like this kind of game, give it a try. But if you want to know my personal opinion, I don't really like it. So, of course, that doesn't necessarily matter because you're free to your own opinion. But, yeah, so overall, Xenoblade Chronicles, The next one I'm going to talk about is The Last Story, which I think people probably like the most. And this game is interesting because it is developed and produced and directed, or probably just directed and whatnot, by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the man who many would consider the father of Final Fantasy. And the music is done by Nobuo Uematsu. So if there are any Final Fantasy purists out there who are just like, oh, it has to be Sakaguchi and Uematsu, then, this is probably the game for you. Now, this game has more of a tactical kind of battle system, and it also has auto attack, but you can turn it off. In fact, I think the game tells you to turn it off if you don't like that kind of game. It's a very interesting. It's all about, it's strategizing in an action, real-time kind of battle system, which I actually like, because I prefer to actually do that kind of strategizing where you don't really have much time to just sit and think. You hide behind stuff, so it's a little similar to a shooter in that respect, where they give you cover and whatnot. I mean, no, it's not a shooter, but and also give you the option to customize your character's appearance if you want to. And there's also multiplayer, which I promised a friend I'd play with her. So the color scheme of this game is actually kind of gray. I probably should have mentioned before that Xenoblade Chronicles was at least a little more colorful with its graphics. I guess you can assume that from when I said the graphics were fine. But this one kind of has sort of a grayscale to me, or rather, darker colors, which may be its weak point. It's definitely a nice looking game though, and the British voice acting, in my opinion, actually fits this one well because they at least do like the average kind of. It's all good. It's decent voice acting, good emotion and whatnot. And of course, the game itself is fun. So this is probably this is a good one. It's not my favorite, and if this isn't my favorite, you can almost guess what my favorite actually is. But this one is probably the most polished out of all of them. Again, spoiling my thoughts on the next one slightly. And this one is actually the only one I currently own. I'm gonna get the next one, obviously, but and this one I think was a nice entry, and it's unique. Doesn't really feel like a Wii game. It's just a overall good game, and if you want something to play on your Wii, you should get it. And that's one thing that these three games have in common. They all just feel like just games. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a Wii game, No, it's not like that. It's just a game. I mean, I'm not too impressed with the Wii's lineup in general, but this is definitely a title you should probably get if you plan on getting a Wii game at some point, and you're all like, I don't know which one to get. Then you should be like, well, get this one. Or the next one. Which, by the way, is Pandora's Tower. And if you couldn't already tell, this is actually my favorite out of all three of them, and was also the last one that was released. Last Story and Pandora's Power were both released by Exe, and I believe Xenoblade Chronicles was just released by Nintendo themselves. More of like a reluctant, okay, we'll release it. Gosh. But this one I actually really like. And of course, all these games were released in Europe. They actually came out in Europe first. Well, technically Japan first, then Europe second. But anyway, this one has an okay color scheme. More along the lines of Xenoblade Chronicles in terms of its... I mean, I'm not saying it looked like Xenoblade Chronicles, but it has more colors to it. The story in this one, actually, I find very interesting. Like, because, you're Aaron, or Ande, as he's named in Japanese, and you're trying to cure your girlfriend, Elena, or Ceres in Japan. Yeah, I looked this shit up. Of a curse that she has where if you don't give her beast meat, she will turn into a monster. And it's interesting because her religion, she doesn't eat meat. So it's actually very interesting and whatnot. So she's forced to eat meat. And of course, when she goes to the monster form, she starts to kind of crave it. But... and it's a very interesting game. And the voice acting, again, British. All three of these games have British voice acting. This one is actually pretty good, and I think it fits the most out of all of them, but the acting's a little weak. Like, this is one where it actually has, like, not as good acting, in my opinion. I don't know, I just think it's okay. It's definitely good acting. I'm going to pick this one up when I can. This one... definitely probably my favorite. Like I said, the battle system's actiony, but they do want you to use, sort of like a pointing like a point and click kind of thing. Almost is like the game wants to use the classic controller, but also wants to use the Wii at the same time. So it's mapped to the the right stick, because you're supposed to use this chain to kind of go around and like latch on to stuff, swing from stuff, grab stuff, while you go through each of the levels of the tower, fight the big monsters, which you kill by using the chain. So it's really interesting because you literally hurt them by just going backwards with the chain. I mean, they obviously are not going to let you do it for very long, so you kind of have to be careful. But this is also my latest Gamefly game. Obviously, I still use Gamefly. I actually took it back because I needed to really break from it, because it's really stressful. Because, like, I went to, like, the second level. There are 12 levels in total. I guess technically 13 if you count the tutorial one. Well, no, 12. And I got to the... second level. But I kept, like, getting hurt because, like, these stupid friggin' bird things kept messing me up. And it's like, stop it. That's, like, really annoying. Like, that's... It's almost like it's artificial difficulty, I think. It was actually kind of annoying. And I was able to get to the boss room, but the only problem is I was running out of time. Like, that's one thing about this game. It's kind of run on a time limit. And you're given a certain amount of time. Or they give you like a gauge, and if you fuck around, then obviously you're going to be wasting time. And the further in you get, the further Elena's transformation will be. So you actually kind of have to work quickly, or you could always go back and give her monster meat to give you just a little bit of extra time. But you kind of have to plan it, I think, and you can't just save up and just give her monster food like before a fight, before you head off, just to kind of keep her on a good level. That'd be cool. But like it'll go like raw or stale or whatever. And you can then sell it to. And if you either have to feed it to her like right then, or sell it to like this merchant who will also buy books, and that's one way you can make money. And you have to buy a lot of stuff, and you buy upgrades for your sword to make you stronger. And so you kind of, it's a lot of planning and like a lot of management and whatnot. So this game's actually kind of stressful. I mean, I like it, but it's like stressful and whatnot. But and anyway, the end. I didn't finish my story about the level. I got to the boss, but I was like, literally, I had no time left, and I was like worried that like, oh my goodness, am I gonna like be like mid boss, and then Aaron be like, Elena, and then like run far away back to their home base. Then Elena will be like, I looked up some of the endings, and so I'm aware of what actually happens. And for one of them, I can kind of guess what happens. The love story, I feel like, is kind of weird because, like, all the stuff you read about makes it seem like they're in love, but like the way they act, I feel like is different. They don't really seem like they're in love to me. But I definitely love Elena, especially when she says, "What's up?" And it's like, oh my god, that's so cute. Yeah, we'll turn to a monster and eat you. No. But I think the boss rooms are actually a safe zone because the time kept blinking, or maybe it just like takes a really long time. Or either that, or after beating the boss, like you're in a safe zone, and thankfully you could just leave the boss room, and then it would do a cutscene back to home base. And she was pretty far in her transformation, so I got to see what she would do with the meat. And like she took it from me. She's like, ow, 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 ow. No, it was pretty icky. But then I showed Nick and AJ, and they were like, oh my goodness. But definitely my favorite in terms of story, gameplay, and design. Even though this game is really stressful and has a little bit of artificial difficulty, like I really care about the story. I want to help Elena. I really do, and I kind of want to know what happens. And even though I saw because I'm thinking, well, I really want to know the story, but I'm not sure if I want to play the game, so I'll watch some of the cutscenes. So I learned, like, yeah, I know there's one scene where you have to kill Elena, and like near the end, like you get to stab her. There's another scene where she eats you, and that's if you get a game over and whatnot. Those were the only ones I saw, but even still, I still wanted to play the game. I'm more of a person, like, the way I view spoilers is like, yeah, I know, but I still haven't seen how it plays out. Which, with storytelling, that's actually pretty important, how something is done. Not necessarily the what is, but also how. There's more to it than just the knowing it, like, and plus it's a game. It's a little more interactive than just a novel. You can't just watch everything and expect to get the full experience of a video game. But anywho, that's a subject for another time. So I'd say Pandora's Tower is probably my favorite, and I'm probably going to pick it up as soon as I can once Exilia is out, probably, because that's going to take a chunk out of my money. Maybe not, because I'm trying to save up, but anywho. Yeah, this is Flames Veronica, YouTube's Tosuke signing out. I will see you guys for the next video, and I have no idea what that is. Probably a Wheneverly update or something. Anyway, bye.